Hello there and welcome to a new video for Age of Wonders 4. In this one I got a new build for the Mystic culture using the Dragon Dawn DLC Tome of Evolution. We're quite battle mage heavy, we're using a lot of magic units, summons, elementals, and it's a lot of fun. So we're going to go over all the moving parts of this build as usual. You will find the timestamps in the description box if you want to check out something in particular. Knock yourself out. Let's get started with the culture and the race. So for this one, I went with a combination of mana channelers and ruthless raiders. Mana channelers makes your summons cheaper, which is really useful. You could also alternate into runesmiths because I see a massive synergy in that too, because we're using a lot of unit enchantments as usual, and runesmiths is just outright very powerful. Ruthless Raiders is something I highly recommend because you will hunt down a lot of mob camps anyway, and the Mystic culture benefits from this one quite a lot, because classically, gold and draft are two of the resources my Mystic cities always are a little bit lacking in, and therefore I really have enjoyed this one so much, especially since you can increase the amount of gold you gain per killed unit by the Empire affinities of the Chaos even more. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later down the road. But this thing here is really nice for this build. Allows you to expand your cities really nicely. Body and mind traits, I went for quick reflexes on the body, but you might as well pick up whatever pleases you in terms of damage mitigation, but I'd recommend you to pick up some damage mitigation at this slot. And Arcane Focus, well, it's just the go-to trait for Mystic culture in my humble opinion. So far, I haven't found anything better. Let me know if you know. So, on the tome section, we go right into the Tome of Evolution. I like to start with this one. You could totally start with Pyromancy too, but let's go over Evolution first. So you gain access to two massively useful units, the Slither Hatchling and the Wyvern Fledgling. So you have a frontline fighter and you have a skirmisher. Both of these guys are nigh indestructible because of Rapid Evolution enchantment. This is a unit enchantment that is useful for all units that evolve, and the major sales point here, besides them leveling faster, is as long as you win the combat, these bad boys of tier 1 and 2 will always come back to life. So that means your early game will be a lot about these guys, because they are just doing the heavy lifting for you, because you don't need to worry if they die at all. Really good stuff. So Youthful Rejuvenation is your healing spell that you have access right from the get-go to. It's really good as well because, you know, double healing on evolving units, here, these guys, and it makes early game combat a breeze. Draconic Vitality is a nice icing on the cake. I love more resilient units. It's always good to be able to react to things if they are a little bit more burst resilient. Shepherd is a massive support trait that I totally can recommend because it just boosts up the stats of your tier 1 and tier 2 units with evolution so much. It is just that good. The other tier 1 tome I pick up for this build is Pyromancy. I found this tome to be the most synergistic one for the idea that we're playing. First and foremostly because of the less magma spirit. This guy is a battle mage unit, summonable, and he evolves into a bigger magma spirit. These guys are also battle mages, and they can nuke like crazy, and they can teleport. This is a major backbone of your entire army. Fiery arrows is something you can mostly ignore. The only people that benefit from that in your build are skirmishers. We do have two types of skirmishers, so you could use it if you'd like to, but most of the time I just skip the research. Ignite and Immolate are pretty nice things, although Ignite I most of the time see as skippable too, simply because you can just go for Cosmic Ablation and you have just more damage, and you know, the Mystic's baseline spell basically replaces this guy. You could go for the Pyromancers if you'd like to, but I personally skipped these entirely for this build and replaced them entirely with Magma Spirits because they are just not able to die as long as you win, and this is just massive. The Pyromancers don't have this benefit, and therefore, well, As you see here, we're only picking up parts of this tome, but they are really, really powerful for this build, promise. So I'm trying to go over the ritual pyre here. So this one I can highly recommend too. You are mana hungry, this transforms forests into mana. It's a good one, I like it too. Sadly, it's a forester and not a conduit, but hey, you can't have everything in life. The Tome of Amplification is the first tier 2 tome to pick, and it offers you frenzying focus, which is massive. It allows your battle mages to buff up themselves, supporters as well, of course. You have a nice chain lightning nuke. It sometimes comes in handy. I don't find it omnipotent, but it's a pretty nice one. Amplification Pylon, I love this thing because it makes your battlefield spells more powerful, and it's something to attract the enemy's attacks with. Astral Blood is so good for this build. You start to rack up crit hit stacks with this thing whenever you cast spells, and with the Mystics you will cast spells every turn due to the Starblade's passive. So massive synergy here. And Amplify Minds, well, if you have the mana per turn left for that one, strong recommendation, you cannot have too much knowledge income. No, you don't. And resonance fields, if you have the time and the opportunity to build some, build some. They are just good, period. The other tier 2 tome to pick up, we go into Mayhem. So Mayhem is a nice route for battle mage builds in general, and I personally rarely skip it because it's so good in many, many aspects. So first off, the Mark of Misfortune spell alone is basically worth picking up this book. Your battle mages and supporters will give the enemy fumble chance. This lowers their average damage profile, and this alone is already so good. Summon Gremlin gives you the ability to summon a skirmisher right up to the battlefront. He's not immortal like your other skirmishers, but hey, in a pinch you can fill up your ranks, and behind you is just a massive opener that, you know, these guys, they make enemies flankable by just ranged attacking. I love gremlins, they're just that good. Also very hard to kill due to displacement. Curse of Misfortune, I rarely use it, but if I use it, it is really cool because it's wide, it debuffs the enemy, and sometimes you just want to do something useful, and this thing is in all means useful. Because of its huge radius, you often hit so many enemies. But Infectious Insanity is one of the hidden superstars of this book. You can just inflict insanity on whoever you want to, and that can slow down an entire army. It can sometimes... oh, well, this has lots of utility. This book alone is worth picking up because of these two spells, in my humble opinion, but it offers so much more. The third tome to pick up is the Tome of Pandemonium. You could also pick up the other tier 3 tome, which will be the Tome of Summoning first, but Pandemonium first for me due to several reasons. Havoc Magic is the last piece that was missing in this build to go for your battle mages to go totally crazy and dominating on the battlefield. There is a very, very high chance that your battle mages will henceforth randomly disable enemies by just attacking them, and that changes so much. And yeah, it's a massive benefit, and as soon as you have Vessels of Chaos, all your units will benefit from the disables and statuses you inflict. And yeah, it's just massive. This combo alone, so much worth it. Inside Revolution, I love it. I just love being able to spamming infestations at will. It's just useful. And Mass Hysteria is just a nice battlefield spell, which can outright disable an entire hex of units. It's so good. Chaos Eater, well, we are full-on battle mage, so you can totally use this guy, but in the long run, I am not utilizing this unit too much in this build. Maybe my mistake. So, the next one to pick up is a little bit hard. So you have, from this point on, massive freedom. You know, you can choose many, many different roads. We're going to open up with the Tome of Summoning here. That's my personal preference for this build, because I just find it very, very fitting for the mystic culture in general. Arcane Restoration will allow you to battlefield-wide heal your fire elementals, which are the backbone of your army. It's just damn good. Arcane Supercharge allows you to send your Fire Elemental Super Saiyan, which is really, really massive, but it's a little bit costly. An Arcane Bond, I love being able to turn the enemy's units against them. It's just fun. And if it doesn't work, it's a mini nuke. Why not? The Astral Serpent, you can totally use her as well. She's not as resilient as your evolving units, but it is just one hell of an annoying unit to deal with due to Shattering Refuge. You know, it has a range of 6. You can plot this thing into the enemy backline, and you can totally be assured of this thing drawing attention and being a pain to deal with. And if they die, well, summon a new one. It's just okay. Mana is your main concern here. And the Conjure Astral Keeper is one really interesting combat summon because you can summon a supporter. I love this because usually with this build I'm very, very fully slotted up with the offensive units, and being able to pull the supporter out of the hat is for this build really, really useful. And yeah, it's just doesn't it's a supporter that doesn't fill up your army slots, and I like that. Alright, so don't forget to pick up the Wisp Familiar if you are into that branch. It's really cool to have that extra unit, and Astral Wisps are annoying to deal with because they can stun people if they're standing in the enemy's way. So, really nice one. The other three Tier 3 Tome options that I totally see as valid and competitive here are: I personally think Terramancy is really cool. We're already playing with elementals, but we are not really buffing elementals per se, but this thing is really a nice frontliner that you can put up if you ever need one. Crushing Earth is a insane battlefield spell which can just outright kill units or inflict massive damage to them and stun them, so really good stuff. And Seismic Shock is a really, really powerful battlefield nuke, so there's a lot of synergy for your Mystic playstyle in this one. Earth Shatter and Tremor Ritual, I'm not going to go too deep into these because they aren't too synergistic with this build per se. So, Tome of Dragons, I just want to skim it real quick. You can totally use it out of one simple reason: Flamer Focus. You are Battle Mage heavy. This gives all of your Battle Mages another nuke to use. Do I need to say anything more? If so, you get a heal, you get extra the extra ability to turn all your units dragons, you have an extra siege project, but most importantly, you get to recruit dragons, and you get to recruit Elden Dragons at some point, and that's just massive. Go for it if you please. It's a totally valid choice at that point. And last but not least, I realized that even the Tome of the Cold Dark is not too bad for this build. If you want to turn everything ice, this does work surprisingly well. Hear me out. You get these skirmisher units, which are amazing good at disabling people, and we really, really can use them well. It's another skirmisher in our lineup. They work good, and we gain Frostling Transformation and Marching Winter. This is only interesting because of the Frost Spire, which gives you knowledge income here for icy provinces. So since you're knowledge hungry, this works out totally fine. I don't see it as the big synergy, but if you like to go elementals and you want to go fire and ice, go crazy. So tier 4 wise, I would really say go as you like. You have access to Astral Mirror and Astral Convergence. Astral Convergence I totally recommend. It has so many things that work out well for you. Astral Attunement is one really, really cool thing. You gain mana and knowledge for your population, which works so darn good for this build. Cascading Power is just so good for you when you're playing Mystic in general, because, you know, you will inflict a lot of damage with this thing every fight. And Explosive Manifestation is just a wonderful spell. It's a nuke and a summon in one. What's not to like about that? So Astral Shattering is really cool because, you know, it destroys provinces and it provides things to slaughter. Really good for your build because you gain gold for slaughtering stuff. And Arcane Maelstrom, yeah, if you have the slot open, it's pretty nasty because it nukes enemies each turn, so pretty good stuff. And the other tier 4 option I really liked for this one is Chaos Channeling. It gives you access to Scion of the Flame, which is pretty good because you are pretty heavy on the fire side. Golden Horde is not bad either, but here Demonic Focus is so synergistic. It's the icing on the cake of your Battle Mage plan. They heal better with that. The strengthening is pretty redundant. This thing is mainly for the resilience factor, but it's not that super powerful. Gremlin Ambushers, though, is stupidly good, and Fan the Inferno, well, inflict everybody on the battlefield with burning. Yes, please. We deal more damage to enemies per negative status they suffer from. Don't forget that. But the Astral Mirror Tome is a so close competitor. Damage reflection for your shields and pole arms, you know, you have those spell shields, more about that in a hot minute. You get the ability to copy your own units, you get the ability to copy the enemy units. It is just an outright good addition to that one, so I'll leave it up to you where you want to go with your tier 4 tomes. So let's talk military. So early on, you will rely on your Dragon a lot, who is a really outright a one-man army. Basically, you can send them alone out there if you'd like to. You have the healing spell, you have everything you need. But army stack-wise, go first up for a couple of Arcanists and ignore whatever Arcane Gods you have. You don't need these guys. Once you have access to the Wyvern Fledgling, replace your Spear dudes with that because they are just more resilient in your build. And if you can, also recruit yourself some Slithers. Slithers, Wyverns, and Arcanists make up the perfect bulk of your early game army. Get yourself to tier 2 as quick as possible, of course. It won't be that hard because you have gold with the build as we have it, and then get yourself some Soothers and some Spell Shields. These units will be very, very important over the entire game, whereas the Arcanists will get replaced. So don't go too bonkers on the Arcanists. You don't need too many of them, because they will totally get replaced by fire elementals over the course of the time. The spell shields, though, they are massively important for your army. For one, they can reduce the enemy's magical resistance, which is super important in some occasions, and they provide an AoE stun, which is outright amazing. You can put these guys to so much work in the course of this build, so go for them. And Soothers, well, you should always have at least one Soother for spell channeling, but it doesn't hurt to have 2 of these in your stack of 3 armies, or even 3 if you rely heavily on these. But I was okay with 2 of these per army stack, and then you are pretty much able to spam the rest of your army full with magma spirits. The more you can afford mana wise, the more you should just crank out. These guys are really, really good in every aspect for your build. Just fill up your roster with enough spell shields to have a front line that can protect your mages. And for the offense, you just use the Slither Hatchlings and the Wyverns as throwaway units, because they will come back after the fight anyways. And yeah, that's your early and mid-game plan. Once you are able to, by all means, get yourself the tier 3 Town Hall to get those Spellbreakers. These guys are game changers. Star Purge is not so much a thing for its damage, it is a positive status cleanser, and as soon as you have 3 Spellbreakers, you're basically technically able to strip up all buffs from an entire enemy army in one turn. I know, it's not really realistic, but it's technically possible. Therefore, Spellbreakers are the complement to your fire elementals. You should have, in my opinion, like 1/3 Spellbreakers, 2/3 fire elementals. That's a pretty good ratio to strive towards to. And from that point on, well, military-wise, that's it. There's not really much more behind it. Battle Mage builds are pretty simple, straightforward, and stupidly effective. And as you see here, we have those lesser magma spirits as the throwaway backbone, and we have the higher evolved ones than later. Well, here I have a little bit of clutter that I picked up here. That's one of the banners. So here is one of those banners that has been fully evolved. So this works darned well It's just aren't mana hungry. So keep that in mind. So we are done with the military part. Let's talk strategy. So you are massively overpowered with that dragon ruler on its own. I don't know if these guys stay like that, but if they do, you will always have a one-man army available that can just clear out mob stacks autonomously. So my personal experience was, or the more I play with these dragon rulers is, it really pays off to send this guy out to take out nodes on his own if possible, to get a lot of experience into him so you can evolve that breath attack and the support skills and whatnot. You know, there's a lot of juice in them. For example, the ancient governor skill is massive. Whatever you go for, keep in mind that this guy basically doesn't need any support from your side. That's just the first point. The other thing is your early aggression revolves much around these tome units, and basically once you have access to the things I counted or I mentioned in the military area, you can totally go and conquer whatever you like to. Just try to get yourself cities up as quick as possible and strive for as many mana nodes and ancient wonders, magic materials, as usual, of course, but your mana income is massively important for this build. Most, funnily enough, you will have almost no issues with gold. Let's get into this one here. So you have the that one trait, but you also can gain battlefield looting, and from that point on, fighting stuff is darn profitable. You will get so much money out of that. So I really enjoyed that one a lot, and the extra draft from killing stuff is also very, very useful for you. Your astral aspects, well, I'm a really, really big fan of adaptive research due to the simple reason as it makes your libraries and research buildings darned cheap. I'm a really big fan of casting reserves. Get yourself that thing going as quick as possible, mostly for the world map casting points. You have so many enchantments to crank out. You'll need that. And the astral inspiration thing is also really, really good because, you know, it might be not always what you want, but it gives you the chance to get exactly what you want cheaper. But the really big star here is Philosopher Soldiers. I want to point out how important and powerful this is. You will, I don't know how much knowledge you gain, but ranking up units is something that you do with that build so freaking much that, yeah, you gain a lot of benefit out of that. Also, focused studies is really, really good, so hunt those research posts and conduits. So you can go really very aggressive from the get-go, because my impression of this one was as soon as I had access to the where is it, to the rapid evolution enchantment, you can just play combat so recklessly due to the resurgence of your units that it's just a mosh fest and it's fun. So yeah, I really don't have that much to add into, except for you should really try in battles in general to have always a couple of low tier units in your stack. Don't do the mistake to have none of these tier 1 evolvers anymore, because they are basically the throwaway part of your army. And the fun part about these is they aren't necessarily weak. You have a lot of juice in them, and they transform into something more powerful. But out of 18 units, I would strongly recommend you to have at least two tier 1 evolvers that you can play around. And when you're evolving your heroes, I strongly recommend going hard into support for this build. You have access to so many good things, and especially experienced leader is a massive bonus for builds like these. You gain knowledge for ranking up your units. You have units that just develop into something more powerful when they level up. So in short, experienced leader is something that should be on all of your heroes at all points. Just my humble opinion. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. It's a very straightforward and powerful build. And oh yeah, before I leave, there's one more thing I want to add into. So if you aren't hell-bent on a magic victory, you can totally go when you have to select a new tome, you can totally go for Show Tome Library and pick up another tome to pick up, I don't know, Evocation fits in super well into this build. It gives you Storm Spirits, which are shock units. They again evolve, so they fit into the scheme as well. And you can totally go for many of those tier 1 tomes. Most of them add something really, really good into your build, especially the ones that give you more unit enchantments and or elementals that you can't pick up. So for example, I'm a big fan of Cryomancy here, because the Lesser Snow Spirit is also really useful. He's not too reliably with his freezing, but he's again a throwaway unit that you can't just pick up. And Frostblades, Ice Coffin, and White Witches are very synergistic there too. So you're not forced to pick up the next higher tomes. Sometimes, especially if you're not opting into the Magic Victory, this can be a fun way to be even more oppressive and dominating as well. So, have a good one, everybody. I enjoyed you that you watched this one. Leave me a comment if you'd like to say anything, or let me know what you want to see next. I'd be delighted if you did. Leave a thumbs up, or a subscription would be wildly appreciated too. Feel free to check out the playlist link in the description box. There is lots of other Age of Wonders stuff I made, and I'd be delighted if you'd give it a look. Have a wonderful day besides that, and again, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you come back soon.